that wasn't one of the best things you've seen today, I'm going to call you a liar. Hello, my fellow hunters. And today I want to talk a little bit about frontier and wilds and frontier and wilds. Because it's getting just that ever little bit nearer. Front nearer, you could say. I just want to make people happy. In any case, what I'm alluding to here, of course, is the recent addition of the water gun emote. A really just over-the-top, detailed emote that lets you have fun little water fights and even hunt monsters with it if for some reason you feel like being insane. In any case, the charm of it aside, as we all know, in the center floating merrily along is a Guku. And a Guku is from Frontier. Again, something you probably already know at this point. But if you don't, yeah, this little guy merrily bobbing away is essentially the Poogie of Frontier. The mascot, the charming little animal that everyone will defend with their life, and he has appeared in many adorable forms over Frontier's long life, including a hunting horn that basically just turns your hunter into one and you can waddle away.
Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle, waddle.
Which is just lovely. Now, I'm not about to sit here and say, well, they've added Frontier's little mascot animal as a little Easter egg inside of a water gun, so clearly, Frontier monsters coming confirmed. But I do think it is a fun little segue to actually look just how much frontierage has happened to Monster Hunter in recent titles. And by recent titles, I mean quite literally the last two. Your Sunbreak and now your Wilds. In Sunbreak, we have the obvious addition of the frontier equivalent of Rathalos in Espinas, their flagship of flagships, and I think he already said it pretty perfectly back then.
Espinas avast, bringing Frontier back, thought dead and gone. Well, not for long, a flagship you'll learn to love, representing all the monsters who've gone to gog above the hot tub, with a winning smile all the while, so cease and desist, poison, fire, paralysis, reduced to mist as I insist, as I call the meek, now I really need to sleep.
He was an absolute curveball, and something I don't think anyone could have reasonably predicted. Unless you're me, and the theory video I did about 6 months before it got revealed. I'm just saying, oh my god. In any case, this is in large part due to Frontier obviously ending, and then some of the Frontier devs ending up on the Monster Hunter team. In this case, the portable team, but I imagine they have spread out throughout Capcom, those that stayed on. And that's obviously borne out by frontiery stuff happening. We then got Flaming Espinas afterwards, another little addition of him, which was also really fun, but even just purely hunting with AI hunter companions, that's from Frontier. Sunbreak did it in a big, proper way, and then that's kind of continued on with Wilds, with your support hunters that you can SOS call in, and they give you that backup to let you play as single player, but with that little bit of help if you need it, or just for the fun of hunting with these characters that you know. Obviously, the Sunbreak system was a lot more involved, and I really liked it. You could edit their styles, there was quests with them, and it was really, really fabulous, but the essence of that system has transferred to Wilds, and I would say is now just going to become a standard part of Monster Hunter, which is really, really cool. That full-on imprint from something so very Frontier is now so very mainline. Espinas also existing means that he could return as a monster just in any given future Monster Hunter game. Again, we even had the inspiration skill in Sunbreak, which was very much just a version of a Frontier equivalent skill. So even armor skills are, well, not off the table. And when I put it like that, it's actually quite ridiculous. Monsters, mechanics, armor skills, oh, and, you know, actual full-on armor sets. In Sunbreak, if you remember, we kept getting event quests that just rewarded a Frontier armor set, cosmetic only, but still. It's actually essentially every core element of a Monster Hunter game except weapons, magnet spike, or your tonfas, imagine, has kind of crept its way in. Even the lore-y sort of expansive sidey bits. The Diva is in Frontier, but of course the Diva is from Monster Hunter proper, but still there's a little bit crossover there, especially with it coming back in Wilds, because Wilds has a lot of things that Monster Hunter DOS did. The Diva, for example, and even the weather shenanigans. And Frontier was heavily based on Monster Hunter DOS. That was kind of its foundational mainline Monster Hunter game that it spiraled off from. So again, that's no coincidence. Essentially doing things from DOS automatically gives it crossover with Frontier. And Frontier did a lot of weathery stuff. There's the map with the actual lightning storms that does interact with the monster mechanics. Our lovely Leviathan here actually having a light mode in the sun and lightning in the stormy rain. And the actual lightning strikes affecting you as a sort of map hazard as well is a really, really cool thing. So you could even argue that the inclemency on the Windward Plain is kind of from that same stock. The point I'm making here is that this addition of a little duck suddenly opens up this whole can of frontierness in mainline Monster Hunter again for me, and I think it's a really fun thing to look back on and talk over. But now that we have done essentially that, to the future then, it almost feels inevitable we'll get something more from Frontier, whether it's a tiny little Easter egg or here's an entire monster, and in either case I certainly wouldn't complain. Me and Cotton adored playing through it, and it really is something special unlike any other Monster Hunter-esque experience. It gets ridiculous and brutal and grindy and very MMO-y and not in the best of ways towards the end, but the core experience, the monsters, the weapons, everything that makes it unique is wonderful, and that wonderful stuff is now up for grabs when it comes to mainline Monster Hunter. And the thing is, when I look at Frontier more than anything, I think it's a real shame to have lost some of the big boys when it comes to that game, in terms of monsters. The level of shenanigans pumped out by Frontier Elder Dragon and Elder Dragon level monsters is just hilarious, and you can't really just put them in a Monster Hunter game without heavily changing how they work, but at the same time, well, you certainly can add them as endgame challenges, or hell, even title updates. We know that they're willing to put Frontier monsters in title updates because Flaming Espinas happened. And actually, if we look over to Teppen, the Monster Hunter card game, a lot of Frontier monsters are getting official localization names thanks to it. So there's even a little bit of through thread there. I believe Disufiorio was fairly recently given a proper name, the Black Dragon level Seraphim Dragon. In any case, I just really would love to see them take one of the wilder Frontier monsters and just kind of make it a big bad of either the Master Rank expansion or a title update. Or maybe even a title update in the Master Rank expansion. Who knows? Or even a spot of Porque no los dos. I really think that would be wonderful. Honestly, if I had to pick... Well, it's really difficult for me to choose, because I think my favorite Frontier monster on balance as a monster is Bogabadurumu. The sort of coral, beautiful gas explosion with his jowls like many lizards have. I think he's a really fun design, he's a really fun fight, and he was the last ever new monster to be added to Frontier. So I think it's somewhat fitting that by chance he's actually become probably my overall favorite. But then you have things like, well, your Guanzarumu, the Emperor Dragon, with his minions that pick you up and try to throw you off the tower for an instant one-hit kill, which is hilarious. Honestly, even Arkveld, before we knew more about him, thinking that he was an extinct species, an ancient species, maybe an origin species, that had some Frontier vibes, though not deliberate. It certainly did speak of that entire category of monster. But for me, the more and more Frontier stuff we get, the more and more I want to see some more monsters actually rescued, because there really is some perfect ones that could be chosen, and a lot that deserve to have another life, that deserve to have another moment in the sun and be exposed to a much larger monster hunter loving crowd. There is so much all sorts to choose from, like magnetism monsters, which are really interesting, and hell, even more versions of Rathalos, which I think we can all agree is something that we are sorely needing. There is even Yamakurai, the take on Yamasukami in an actual hunt, and one of Cotton's favorites, and a really good way to make that a proper encounter, and then bring back an old legend of mythical status from mainline monster at the same time, at least in a way. Look, the point I'm making here is when you add it all together in a list, there's actually a fair amount of Frontier across various levels, from Easter egg to full-on monster implementation across, well, Sunbreak, and now a little bit less, but still there in Wilds, and it does make you think, it makes you wonder, it makes you want. And I would love to know what you guys would want from Frontier. What would be the ideal? I mean, obviously monsters, but maybe anything else too. It would be fun one day to get a version of the Tonfas or the Magnet Spike, but they are both kind of absolutely ridiculous, and I'm not sure exactly how that would go down balance and moveset wise, but hey, stranger things have happened. In any case, I think this was just a fun little topic, the kind of slow creeping Frontierification integration of Monster Hunter, and it's something that I'm very much not mad about. For now, though, like if you've enjoyed this, let me know your thoughts, and subscribe for even more thoughts, both from me and I guess from you when you reply to my thoughts with your own thoughts. The point is, consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.